guys remember this Silverado, the one I misdiagnosed with the spider injectors? Well, it's still here. And the reason, it's been like a week after I fixed it. The reason for that is the owner came to pick it up, and I told him, here, take it out for a test drive. It drives great, Take it out for a test drive. While he was driving it, I noticed, like, man, this guy's taking a really long test drive. He was gone for like 30-40 minutes. Well, he finally gets back, and it turns out that he lost his brakes during the test drive. He said the pedal went all the way to the floor, so he just like drove it back very slowly. And we didn't see any leaks at that initial moment because all the brake fluid had already leaked out. So I said, leave it here. I'll look it over, see what's going on. And it didn't take long for me to find the actual problem. All right, see this big stain on the floor? Well, if you look underneath here, you can see the brake lines right there and how they're all rotted away. I'm not gonna touch this. This is opening up a can of worms. I don't mind doing brake lines, but when they're bundled up like that next to each other, if you go touching one, you just tend to create more leaks. You break other lines. So he's gonna have to get it towed out to a shop, and that's where we're at. He hasn't been driving the car for a whole year because he couldn't get it to pass the emissions because of the misfire. Now that we get the misfires fixed, takes it out for a test drive. And by the way, he said the truck has never ran this good. He said it's running absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, now the brakes went out. So he's gonna get it towed out of here tomorrow. He's gonna take it to a shop and see what's gonna happen. So the owner said tow truck's gonna come pick up the Silverado tomorrow at like 8 or 9 a.m. And I'm like, I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. I don't wake up till 11 or noon every day. So he was like, you know what, just go ahead, leave the door unlocked and leave the key underneath the floor mat, and the tow truck driver just take the key, So I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and this thing's gonna be gone. Either a tow truck driver took it or someone stole it. What really happens will forever be a mystery. I don't really see a floor mat here, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead and put the keys underneath this seat cover. I'm Batman. Alright, so it's all set. You guys just saw backing plate for a brake pad wedged inside of here. The owner had his brakes done like 2 months ago. He had someone just pad slap it. So they put pads on the rear, pads on the front. The problem is it looks like the old pad, grinding like this, fell out of the caliper and behind the rotor and between the backing plate, and was sitting down here, and I guess he didn't notice it. So he pad slapped it, and then the owner took it back saying, hey, there's a noise when I go over bumps and blah blah blah, grinding noise, right? So the guy who put the pads on it, he goes and slaps a caliper on it. Why would you put a caliper on this? It's not that hard to find that something was wedged inside of there. It just goes to show that some people don't give a crap and they're just out there trying to take your money. Simply, that's all it is. I asked him, why didn't you just bring the car to me to fix it? And he's like, you know what, I should have brought it to you, but I was over there, and the guy was close by, and blah blah blah. So whatever, not the point. It's funny how it's baffling me. It's like I want to keep ranting, but it's crazy how he didn't find this thing wedged down here the first time when he put the pads on it. And if you come in here and put brake pads, you got to wonder what happened to the original brake pads, right? Just don't assume that it just fell off. I mean, put a little bit of effort into looking for the actual brake pad. It's not that hard. And then the second time the car came back, instead of you checking or taking the car for a test drive, if you heard this grinding noise, what makes you think a caliper is going to fix this? It's just ignorance. It just pisses me off. People pay good money for this stuff, and this is the type of service they get. We are back with this Chevy Colorado. Some of you may recognize it. You guys remember Miller the Filler? So this is the Colorado. Good old Miller the Filler strikes again. So anyway, the owner called me and said, hey, can you go on eBay or Amazon and find me a new fuel door? And I told him why. He's like, because it stays open. I'm like, there's a spring back here that you could just replace. She was like, oh, okay, go ahead and order the spring. You could see he was using a Velcro to try to hold the door shut, which doesn't work too well. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this and see if we can replace the spring. So I got the fuel door off, and unfortunately, the spring is not what's broken here. It is the actual door. See, because here goes the spring right here. And there should be like a little slot for this spring to sit into, but you can see this whole section of metal is just like completely torn out. So there's nothing for the spring to grab onto. There should just be like a little slot right here, not a big open piece. So in this case, the owner would have been right by calling a field door, but it was pure accidental. It's not a big issue. The spring was like $1, you know what I mean? So we're gonna have to see if we could go on eBay and possibly find one of these doors. Hopefully we could find a white one, because when I asked him what color his car was, I couldn't remember, and he was like, oh, it doesn't matter what color, I just need a field door. The guy that was so concerned about the bodywork on his car and he needed to get it fixed, that he paid money to do this type of work, all of a sudden you're not concerned with the color of your field door matching. So what, you want to put a red one on it? You know what I mean? And the final issue why this truck is here is because one day he called me. He said, hey, my truck needs a vent valve, can you order it for me? So we ordered a brand new vent valve for it. I did not look at the car, did not diagnose the car. I guess he got in the zone and they told him what codes he has and what part he needs. So I pulled up the code right here, and indeed you can see we have a evap vent solenoid control circuit. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the part is bad. It could easily be a broken wire. But he didn't pay me to look at it, diagnose it, nothing. Said, hey, buy this part for me, put it on. So that's what we're doing. The old vent valve off of the truck. And what a freaking nightmare due to the amount of rust on this truck. Look at the valve itself, like the solenoid. Might be a lot of corrosion on the inside, who knows. Let's go ahead, pop the new one on, clear the codes, and send him on his way. Got the new vent valve installed. Let's just go ahead, clear the codes, and say 3 Hail Marys. I want to see if I could fix this one, and I want to try to just weld a piece of plate right here that would retain the spring. I have this piece of metal here that I've had sitting in the garage for a while. I'm going to see if I could cut a small chunk of this off and use it to repair that field door. It's either going to work or it's not. Alright, so I got the piece of metal welded in from the front very quickly. And if you look at the back side, it's not welded yet, but I'm going to go ahead and weld it on the back side. And if you look closely, you could see it's just like a T-shape. So it's kind of like playing Tetris, okay? Just put it in there, make sure it fits, line it up, and go ahead and tack it in. So that's what I did. The front side's tacked in. I'm gonna go ahead and weld in the back side as well to give it as much strength as we can. But besides that, look at that slot. Have you ever seen a better looking slot? Well, I digress. So I'm pretty much all done welding. I decided to not grind down the weld, to just leave as much strength as I can. It looks pretty good to me. So as you can see, I hit it with the wire brush real fast. I'm just gonna spray this whole hinge thing with some CRC to protect it from rust. It'll protect it better than paint can. Let's go ahead and fit the new spring on it and make sure everything works. And it was a bit of a challenge, I'm not gonna lie, but it's in there and the flap now functions how it should. See if I could get my pliers. Okay, so that right there would be open, and going back, that's closed. Let's go ahead, spray everything with CRC and get this bad boy back on the car. Alright, so there we go. The door isn't fitting perfectly, and I already tried to tweak it. It was out real bad when I first put it on. So this is actually good. It actually closes, sounds nice and smooth. It's not hitting this metal right here like it was before. It's not centered, but what I'm guessing is the metal is so weak, and when you try to like force that spring in there, you end up distorting some of the metal. So I tried to, like I said, bend it back into place. I don't think the owner's gonna be worried about it. The main thing is that it works. I mean, for crying out loud, this guy said, hey, can you give me a new field door? He goes, I don't care what color it is. If he didn't care what color it was, what makes you think he cares that the door alignment is a little bit off? I got here today, you don't see these bad boys anymore. It's here for an oil change and a air filter. I just opened up the hood right now. I've only driven it for like 30 seconds to pull it into the driveway. I could already notice a coolant leak. The heck? Anyone like spicy food? There you go. Wow, definitely spicy. Look at all the space in this bad boy. It's crazy. Can you imagine all the fun that's been going on in the back of this thing. Definitely don't want to sit down on those back seats. Finally got the doghouse away from the dash. Look at the amount of dog hair on this thing. I guess that's why they call it the doghouse. So I'm just trying to get to that air filter box right there. Here goes our air filter. Yeah, it's looking pretty crusty. Don't know what this is. I'm guessing oil pressure sensor. Looks like it might be leaking. I'm sure there's a ton that's leaking on this thing. Anyway, let's pop in this filter and get this job knocked out. We still have to do the oil change on it. Oh dang it, now my camera's all dirty. I was only in this van for like 5 minutes and now my camera's full of juicy stuff. That's what happens when you step in a party bus, kids. This thing's leaking everything from everywhere underneath it. You probably see right there, I got the oil draining out. Not a lot of oil came out this thing. I'm all done with the oil change. Let's go ahead and get this mystery machine out of here. Go park this piece of crap. Whoa. Got this Altima here. Just pulled off the air intake tube because you could see how it's torn open right there, and they had duct tape around it. As you can see, all the duct tapes they had around the air intake tube. So you can see someone's been inside of here. If I get this focus, this bolt right here is completely loose. You see it for the upper like torque mount. Look at this. So, you know, stuff like this doesn't happen on its own. Looking at this thing closely, I think I see why it's loose. I bet you all the threads are pulled out of there. Alright, so I pretty much got in the 3 engine mounts. Got this one in, the trans mount, and the one that goes underneath the engine. So here they go right here. See, this one's torn pretty bad in 2 places, you know. And here goes the other one, the large one. Now this is a torque mount. It wasn't really torn only because it was never really bolted down. The threads that this thing go into, which are right here, are completely stripped out. Just goes in and out without any issues. No threads at all. Another thing I noticed, which is even a bigger issue, is look at all of the wires going to the ignition coils. Look at this mess. What is going on here? This looks like a mouse. All the wires are super brittle. All the wires have corrosion. All the wires are exposed. It's like that on all of them. Just a matter of time before this car turns into crazy amount of misfires or just straight up a crank no start. So I'm gonna run a tap over this to go ahead and clean out the threads. I still don't know what I'm gonna do about fixing this. I didn't cause it, and it sucks, you know, because the engine needs that torque mount. It's part of the reason why these other mounts get destroyed. And there you go, just ran a dye over it. Everything looks nice and clean now. We still have the problem on the car with the no threads and the aluminum, so gonna figure something out there. I think I hit the jackpot. Guess what I found? It's a bolt, right? So this is the original one, and this is the one I found. So if we match up where the heads are gonna be, you can see this one is slightly longer. It's not a lot, but it is a little bit longer, and fits right inside of here perfect. Let's see if this will work, if we have enough thread engagement. Got my fingers crossed. Alright, so I just finished tapping it. As you saw, it's a M12 by 1.25, I believe, and I went all the way through. Let's see if I can show you guys that it's a hole all the way through. Let's go ahead and test fit the new bolt. It should start to thread in towards the back, of course. And yes, it does. Alright, so that should give us more than enough space to clamp this down, hopefully. Got my fingers crossed. So this is how far the bolt can go in before it starts to hit threads, which is right there. So that's about 3/8 of an inch. So we're gonna have about 3/8 of an inch of thread engagement. For something like this that holds you know, a lot of torque, a lot of engine movement, I would like a little bit more, but beggars can't be choosers, right? I think we got it, guys. I was able, you can see the ratchet I'm using, or the wrench, and I got to the point where I can no longer tighten it by hand. That thing is holding plenty solid. It's got plenty of thread engagement, so that's gonna be a fix. Let's go ahead, get this out of here, and finish putting everything else back together. So I got all the engine mounts done on this Altima. I have a new CV shaft here, so this one's gonna go ahead and get yanked out of here. Surprisingly, the CV shaft came out without too much of a fight. It's actually pretty easy. It's like the easiest thing I've done all day. So gotta count your blessings, right? So anyway, let's listen to the new CV shaft. Get this out the way, and I'm gonna try to do the same exact motion on both sides. Sounds just like I expected to. Now let's go over to the used one. You know what, in fact, I can't even get a full range of motion out this thing. I can't get it to go like in a full circle. It wants to hit in a certain spot and not really rotate, if that makes any sense. Here I have this Nissan Altima. She said the outside one works just fine. It's the inside one that doesn't want to open the door. She said it's embarrassing that she has to lower the window just to get out of the car. I don't know, it doesn't feel super loose like I expected it to be. There's spring tension. But it definitely feels like it's not connected to the rod or the cable, whatever it is behind here. So let's take it apart and see what's causing this. The door panel off, and the cable is still connected to the back. There's no problems at all with the door handle, and the cable right here still connected. Everything looks good on this side, but simply something. So that's the lock function. Whoa, look at that. Here's your problem, lady. So I was able to just completely pull it out, and you could see what's going on here. The other end of this thing snapped off. So I'm gonna see if I could find a set of these things, because that's what's gonna fix this car. Are you kidding me? This is the rear door, okay? I went to open it so I could put the door panel in here, you know, and kind of clean up my mess. As soon as I pulled this, boom, snapped right off. And it still doesn't want to open, even though the inside is unlocked. See, because that's locked, that's unlocked, and it doesn't want to open from the inside either. Maybe there's some sort of child safety thing going on, but I figure it should open from the outside, and no, it doesn't even want to do that. Crap. On the rear passenger side, look what I find. This side's already broken, but at least it opens. So if you pull this out, the door opens up. We are back with this Altima. This is the one that the door doesn't want to open from the inside, and we saw that the cable was broken. To you, you're probably wondering, why is he repeating himself? He's in that same car, but to me, it's like 2 weeks later. So here's the replacement part. Now, it's actually hard to get the cable that broke on this one because the part is discontinued. I would have just bought it brand new from Nissan, but when I looked online, the part just says discontinued. So we went on eBay, found a used one. Someone's selling the entire like door latch, and it has the cable is attached to it. So we're gonna see what we're gonna end up using, or if we're gonna end up swapping out the whole thing, who knows. But let's get the door panel back off of it. So now that I got the unit off of the car, I could see that they're not the same, which really sucks. Well, now it's time to see if we could remove just the cable that we need and transplant it onto the original one, because this one is clearly different. Alright, so I was able to transfer over the cables. It was not fun trying to get this little rubber grommet on here. It's like trying to push a square through a circle hole. But one difference that we have is the original one is just a hair shorter. You can see that's probably like a good, I don't know, maybe an inch and a half longer. So hopefully it doesn't turn out to be an issue. I guess a little bit longer is better than a little bit shorter, right? Alright, so got the door panel on loosely. I already tested it by latching it right here, making sure the handle works. Test the window, it goes up and down without any issues. Let's get inside the car, close the door, and see if it works. The hinges are messed up on this door, so you gotta like slam it hard. Okay, so the door is latched, and before, this handle did not work. You would have to lower the window to open it from the outside. So first, let's go ahead and lock the door, and it does not open. Let's unlock the door, and there it goes. Works just fine. That cable just being like 1.5 inches longer didn't really make any difference at all. It still fit just fine. Got this Dodge Ram 1500 with a big old 5.7 in it, and it's here for a water pump. Thing is, it's a real crunch time right now because it's almost 7 p.m. and I am losing daylight, and the truck does not fit in the garage. Okay, so got to get this done so I could get it out the garage, because it just doesn't fit inside the garage. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get cracking on this thing. And here's a little pro tip to get the fan off this clutch right here. So you get your tool, which you could just rent these from like any auto parts store. And of course, it's not going to want to come off. Leave your belt on. But what I find is to hit the tool right here. You can see I got marks on it already because I've had this tool for years. But instead of just trying to muscle it and turn it off, which can be quite difficult, instead hold pressure on the way that it comes off, so counterclockwise, and then grab a hammer and hit right here downward as you're applying the counterclockwise pressure, and eventually they break free. That works pretty good. Now that I got everything out of the way, got so much space for activities here. Not only do we have the clear signs of a leaking water pump back there, alright, so let's go ahead and drain the coolant out of this bad boy and snatch this water pump off of here. So I can get the valve to start draining on the radiator. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to start moving the water pump and have a pan down there. The good thing is the system's completely filled with water. Only I guess there's an ongoing issue for the owner, and it got expensive putting antifreeze in it, so he just started putting water. But if we look at the radiator right here, we can see clear signs of this radiator being bad also. So I'll talk to him about this. It's not going to get done here or at this time. And here goes the old water pump off of the truck. So yeah, not too bad. I decided to take this hose off with it because this bottom bolt was kind of a pain in the butt to get to. So I figure just go ahead and remove this clamp, take the whole hose off of the car. Not a big issue. The only thing I'm concerned about is I don't think we have like a new gasket for this thermostat right here. So hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. We'll see. And on the engine, now it's time to do plenty of cleaning. I'm just about done cleaning. Give it a good spray with the brake parts cleaner. What you're seeing on the metal right there isn't like gasket material or anything left over. It's just like discoloration in the metal. But the surface looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit more cleaning. Water pump is installed and it's completely torqued down. It's about 7:45 or 8 p.m. something like that. And yeah, so far no bad. No bad? So far no bad. God, thank God I'm not recording any of this stuff. For some reason, somebody removed this original clamp. They moved it all the way down here onto the elbow. And then they installed one of these clamps before, and I don't see anything wrong with the original clamp. It has plenty of tension on it. So I took this one off. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a shot because I prefer these type of clamps. If it starts to leak, I don't know why, but honestly, if it starts to leak, it's because it needs a new hose. Alright, I don't know, I just don't like these things. Now the gasket for the thermostat was pretty flattened out, so that one is going to be sus at this point. Isn't that what the kids are saying nowadays? Sus? Because saying suspect is just a little bit too difficult for them. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on, you know, things like the hoses, obviously, because of that clamp down there that they had a different one on it. We'll keep an eye on the thermostat because the gasket, there's no new gasket supplied, so if it leaks, the gasket's gonna have to get replaced, and possibly even this flange right here, because you could see the amount of rust on it. Now, I did clean up the face, but you can only do so much to it. So if it leaks, I'm not even gonna bother with just a gasket. We're gonna get a new flange and a new gasket, maybe even a new thermostat while we're in there. I feel revitalized when in the house. Got something to eat. I'm 100% again. So anyway, as you can see, I got the belt on the engine, and I decided to, you know what, let's put some coolant in the system, make sure we don't have any leaks. I was going to pressurize the system, but I filled up the system, and just by putting coolant in it, there was a leak already. And guess what? It was the thermostat. You see it dripping right there. I did say it was sus, didn't I? So talk to the owner. He's going to run out to AutoZone right now because they're still open, and he's gonna get me a new thermostat and gasket, as well as a thermostat housing. So it's gonna be this whole flange right here. So the owner just dropped off the new parts. So the first thing I noticed is that the gasket is now sitting proud of the surface. The old one was flush with the surface, and that's what causes leaks. So that new thermostat and gasket is looking really good. And here goes our new flange or thermostat housing. It's a Duralast unit. So the owner did get in his own AutoZone. Hopefully it works. We'll go ahead and pop this bad boy in. Dorman is up to some sketchy stuff because this is a Dorman product, just as I was expecting, but it came in a Duralast box. Makes you wonder, right? So I just refilled the cooling system, and right off the bat, no leaks. Nice and dry. I don't see anything dripping. And you can see it's actually holding. I don't see the needle dropping. I don't see any leaks around here. I don't see anything dripping. You know, on an old car like this where there could potentially be a leak anywhere, you can't really worry too much about this, because let's just say over time this needle starts to drop very slowly. As long as it's not leaking from the work I just did, I'm 100% good with that, because you only have to be concerned with the work you're doing. For example, we know this radiator has some sort of a pinhole or something's going on here, it's leaking, right? So let's just say we start losing pressure right here little by little over time. You can't look at this needle and be like, oh, it's losing pressure, and then start digging into what you're doing or be concerned about it, because that has nothing to do with the work you just did. So as long as that water pump and thermostat housing is not leaking, nothing else matters to me. And look, the whole time we've been talking, I know it's not a long time, but it's still, the needle is still exactly where I left it. I'm 100% okay with this, and now I feel confident on putting all of this back together, and I know what I did is not going to leak. So really good to get confirmation on this, and that tells me that clamp down there is perfectly fine. We don't need that clamp that someone put on there, and everything seems to be good. So I'm just gonna go ahead, put everything back on it, knock it out, and it'll be done tonight, and get this piece of crap out of here. That's it. She's all set. Boy, this thing is big. Look how it just takes up the whole garage. You could hear it's running. It sounds nice and quiet, not like before with that really loud water pump on it. It's late. I gotta get this car out the garage. It's going on 10 p.m. so I'm not gonna worry about bleeding the system today. I'm just gonna park it out on the street real fast, and I'll finish bleeding it tomorrow, but it's all set.